I was 22, near the bottom of the company ladder, and there to help where needed, smile when spoken to, and try not to embarrass myself in front of the people who decided careers over drinks. The event was tied to one of Richard Anderson's flagship properties, a glass and stone monster downtown the company wouldn't shut up about. Half the night was charity, half was image. That was how Anderson liked things. Clean, polished, useful. Richard moved through the room like he owned all of it, not just the building. He had that calm, expensive look some men get when they've spent years being listened to. People laughed a little too hard at his jokes. They leaned in when he talked. Even from across the room you could tell he was the center of it. And then there was Amber. I noticed her because everyone else did first. Blonde, bright, impossible to miss. She wasn't elegant in that quiet way some rich women try to be. She liked being seen. Her dress caught light every time she moved. And she moved a lot. Hand on someone's arm, head tipped back laughing, always giving the room something to look at. She looked like the kind of woman who got bored fast and solved it by making other people nervous. I was near one of the sidebars pretending to study the donor board when I felt someone looking at me. I turned and it was her. Not a random glance. Not a quick sweep of the room. She was already watching me. I looked away first, then immediately hated myself for it. A few minutes later, one of the senior staff asked me to carry a folder to the front host table. Fine. Easy. I grabbed it, walked over, and there she was standing beside it, talking to a woman in a black dress with dark red lipstick and the kind of amused face that said she noticed everything. Amber saw me coming and smiled like she'd been waiting for it. "You're one of Richard's young stars?" she asked. I nearly looked behind me to see who she meant. I don't think anyone's used that word for me. Her friend laughed. Amber's eyes stayed on me. No? Then they should. You clean up well. It hit me harder than it should have. Maybe because she said it so easily. Maybe because women like her weren't supposed to notice guys like me at all, unless we were opening doors. I handed her the folder. Thanks. That's all I get? She said. Just thanks? I looked at her, confused enough that both of them enjoyed it. Her friend saved me a little. She means you're allowed to take a compliment, right? I said. Then, thank you. Amber touched my sleeve, just 2 fingers near my wrist, light enough that it could mean nothing. Better. Richard appeared beside us a second later, already in motion, already half looking toward another couple he needed to greet. Alex, he said, good man, helping us survive the night? Trying to. Amber glanced at Richard, then back at me. He's doing fine. Richard smiled like that was just a pleasant thing for his wife to say about a junior employee. Good. Stay useful. Then he was gone again. I should have moved on too. Instead, I stood there another second too long while Amber watched me like she knew exactly what that little exchange had done to me. Later in the night, I saw her twice more. Once across the auction floor, where she held my eyes until I almost missed a question from one of the project managers. Then again near the terrace, where she brushed past me close enough for her perfume to hit before she said, without slowing down, "You look less scared now." I turned. She didn't. By then I was making mistakes. Small ones, but enough that I noticed. Losing my place in conversations. Checking the room for her when I should have been listening. Telling myself I was reading too much into it while also knowing I probably wasn't. Near the end of the night, I got sent to the service corridor behind the catering station because someone needed signatures on a delivery sheet. I found the clipboard, got the signature, turned back toward the kitchen doors, and Amber was there. Her friend too. Leaning against the wall with a glass in her hand like this was already entertaining. That was fast, Amber said. I looked behind me, like maybe she was talking to someone else. I was just getting. I know what you were getting. She stepped closer. Not enough that anybody could call it something, but close enough that I stopped talking. You've been avoiding me. I don't think that's true. Her friend smiled into her drink. He's cute when he lies. Amber laughed softly. See? She likes you too. There were voices somewhere beyond the doors. Staff moving trays, dishes clinking, the whole event still humming a few feet away. But that corner felt cut off from the rest of it. Amber looked me over in a way no one ever had at work. Casual on the surface. Not casual at all underneath. You should relax, Alex, she said. You look like you think being near me is a bad idea. I swallowed. Isn't it? That got a grin out of both of them. Amber leaned in just enough that I caught the warmth of her perfume again. That depends how good you are at following instructions. Then someone pushed through the kitchen door, and the moment broke. Amber stepped back like nothing had happened. Her friend straightened. I was left holding a clipboard like an idiot. Amber gave me one last look as she turned away. Good night, Alex. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel and the whole night replaying in my head in pieces. The looks, the touch on my sleeve, that corridor, the way she said my name like she'd already decided something. I told myself it ended there. Just a strange night, a rich bored woman having fun, me being stupid enough to take it seriously. 3 days after the gala, Richard called me into his office like it was nothing. He didn't even look up right away. He was signing something, phone lit beside his laptop, city view behind him like a movie set. Amber needs help on one of her foundation projects, he said. Small showcase event tied to the Harbor Crest model property. Vendors, prep, donor materials, some setup nonsense. She asked for you. For a second I thought I'd heard him wrong. Me? Now he looked up. That a problem? No. No, of course not. Good. He slid a folder across the desk. Be useful, be responsive, and don't make me regret it. That was it. Just like that, he handed me over. I walked out trying to keep my face normal, but my pulse was all over the place. She had done exactly what I'd been half hoping for and half afraid of since the gala. She found a reason. Better than that, she got Richard himself to approve it. Our first meeting was at one of the company's showcase properties. A half-finished luxury townhouse the firm used for donor previews and private hosting. I got there early with sample books, vendor quotes, and a printed schedule I'd checked twice in the car because I didn't trust my own hands. Amber arrived 10 minutes late in dark sunglasses and a white blazer, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, like the place existed for her convenience. There's my favorite employee, she said the second she saw me. I shut the car door. I'm pretty sure Richard has favorites above me. She smiled. Not the ones I care about. That was how it went from the start. On paper, I was there to help with furniture staging, floral decisions, catering timing, donor gift bags, lighting for the evening reception, all the little details rich people called important because they had no reason not to. In reality, she used every task to keep me near her. We reviewed layouts in empty living rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows and no one else around. We met fabric people, art people, rental people, all of them speaking in calm, expensive voices while Amber stood just a little too close to me and asked what I thought like my opinion mattered more than theirs. She texted me questions she could have sent through an assistant. Then another question. Then one at night that started with work and ended somewhere else. You were very quiet today. Was I? You were trying not to look at me. I stared at that one for a full minute before replying. You make that difficult. Her answer came right away. Good. After that, it stopped being clean. One evening we finished with a lighting vendor later than planned. The crew left, the place went quiet, and Amber opened a bottle of wine that had been sent over for donor tasting. We earned 1 glass, she said. I should have said no. I knew that even then. Instead, I stood in the kitchen of an empty $3 million property, while the boss's wife leaned against the marble island and watched me drink wine that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. You're less nervous now, she said. I'm still nervous. About me? Yes. She looked pleased by that. Not surprised. Pleased. Good, she said softly. I'd hate to think I was wasting my time. Then she walked around the island and stopped right in front of me. No crowd now. No gala noise. No friend laughing from the side. Just us and the hum of the fridge and my heart pounding like something stupid. If I kiss you, she said. Are you going to make this complicated? I didn't even get a full sentence out. Amber, she kissed me before I could finish. That should have been the moment I came to my senses. Instead, it was the moment everything got easier to justify and harder to stop. Because once it happened, The tension that had been dragging behind us snapped into something real. She wasn't teasing anymore. She wasn't just playing around because she was bored at a gala. She wanted this, and she liked that I was too flattered and too far gone to act smart. After that first time, she started treating Access like a game she was winning. She'd text me during work hours asking for revised guest cards. Then add, "Stay after the florist leaves." She'd call about donor seating and somehow keep me on the line long enough that the call had nothing to do with seating anymore. She sent me across town with sample hardware once, then made me wait while she changed for a dinner meeting I wasn't even attending. She came back out in a different dress and looked at me standing there by the entry table like she enjoyed what waiting did to me. "You're learning," she said. "Learning what? How to be where I want you." The worst part was how normal it all looked from the outside. Richard thought I was stepping up. A couple managers started including me in better conversations because I was suddenly attached to one of Amber's pet projects and not messing it up. I answered faster, worked later, paid closer attention. I looked better at my job because half my brain was lit up all the time. Amber's friend showed up again during a showroom review and took one look at us before smiling like she'd walked in on the middle of a joke. "So it happened," she said quietly while Amber was on a call. I kept my face still. "I don't know what you mean," she laughed. "That bad, huh?" Amber came back, touched my arm on the way past, and her friend just shook her head like I was already done for. From there it moved fast. Too fast. Empty property mornings. Late prep evenings. A car ride after a donor planning dinner where Amber kept one hand on my leg the whole time like she didn't care what happened if I crashed. Work texts turning into instructions. Instructions turning into plans. I knew better. That was the ugliest part. I knew exactly how bad it could get, and I kept showing up anyway. By the end of that second week, I wasn't telling myself it was a mistake anymore. It was an affair. I knew the risks, but I stayed. Am I the victim here or just as guilty? Let's settle this in the comments. And Amber was running it like she'd been waiting for something reckless to make her week interesting. By that point, my life had split into two versions of me, and both of them were doing better than they should have. At work, Richard started treating me less like a junior guy and more like somebody worth keeping around. He pulled me into meetings I had no business being in 6 weeks earlier. He asked for my take on vendor timing, presentation flow, little operational details that used to stay 3 levels above me. Once, after I fixed a scheduling problem for one of the Harbor Crest previews before it blew up in front of donors, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're getting sharper." That should have made me feel good. Instead, it made my stomach tighten, because half the reason I looked sharper was Amber. I was always on, always answering, always moving fast, because I was scared to miss anything from her. Work was helping me rise, and the same thing dragging me upward was also the thing that could ruin me in one day. Amber loved that part of it. She loved that Richard trusted me. Loved that I could stand in a conference room with her husband talking budgets and donor outreach, then get a message from her 15 minutes later telling me to meet her at a furnished model unit across town because she needed help checking table placement. Nobody needed 2 people for table placement. I still went. That model unit was fully staged, lights warm, music already playing softly through hidden speakers because the place was used for private previews. She was there before me, heels off by the sofa, glass in hand, looking more like she was waiting for a date than a staff member. "You're late," she said. "I got stuck with Richard." That made her smile. Even better. That was the kind of thing she liked saying. Not because it was subtle, because it wasn't. We kept finding new places to push it. An event hotel where she was overseeing donor welcome bags and somehow ended up with me in a suite an hour longer than necessary. A car ride back from a champagne-heavy dinner where she sat in the rear seat beside me instead of taking the front. Her hand resting on mine while the driver stared at the road like he saw nothing. An after-hours property check where we were supposed to be confirming floral delivery windows and instead lost nearly 40 minutes behind a locked presentation room while my phone filled with missed emails. Her friend knew enough by then that she stopped pretending not to. She came by one afternoon during a setup review at the townhouse, took one look at Amber leaning against the kitchen counter and me standing too close across from her, and just laughed. "This is going to end badly," she said. Amber didn't even flinch. Most interesting things do. Her friend looked at me. And you really are gone, aren't you? I should have denied it. I didn't say anything. That's what I thought, she said almost kindly. Then she reached for a canopy off a tray and added, at least try not to look guilty in daylight. The worst moments were at the Anderson house. At first it was small. Drop off sample books. Pick up revised donor lists. Bring over a seating mock-up Amber claimed she needed before a planning call. Household staff opened doors, took coats, passed through rooms without staring. But that didn't make it better. It made it stranger. Too polished. Too normal. Like the whole house was built to hide ugly things behind clean walls. One afternoon Richard was delayed in a meeting across town, and Amber kept me there longer than she had to. We were in the downstairs sitting room going through printed place cards. At least that was the excuse. She was barefoot on the rug, legs tucked under her, asking me which names should go near which donors as if any of that mattered. Then halfway through a sentence, she looked toward the front windows and said, "You get tense every time you hear a car. Because I'm not stupid." "No," she said, smiling. "Just not careful enough." Then she stood, crossed the room, and fixed my tie for no reason except to watch what it did to me. 5 minutes later, one of the house staff walked in with fresh tea. Amber stepped back like nothing had happened. The woman set the tray down, calm as ever, but her eyes flicked between us once. Just once. That was enough to make my pulse jump. After she left, I said, "We can't keep doing this here." Amber picked up her cup. "Then don't come when I ask." She knew I would anyway. That was how she kept control of it. She never begged, never chased. She just opened the door and let me walk through it every time. Meanwhile, Richard kept giving me more. Better access. Better conversations. He introduced me to one donor as a young guy with real upside. Another time he asked me to sit in on a planning breakfast with 2 senior people from the commercial side. I should have been thrilled. Instead, I spent half that breakfast hiding the fact that Amber had texted me from upstairs in the same hotel 20 minutes earlier. "Come by before you leave." Signs started piling up after that. A driver saw me at the hotel level before sunrise when I was supposed to be arriving later with printed materials. One of the house staff gave me a look I couldn't read after finding Amber's bracelet on a side table in a room we both had no reason to be in together. We had a close call in the Anderson house when Richard came back early from the office and I had to leave through the side entrance with a portfolio under my arm, trying to look like I'd been discussing donor signage instead of losing my mind. Then there were the little mistakes. The dangerous kind. Amber sending me a message too fast after Richard copied both of us on a schedule email. Me answering a question about her availability before Richard had even asked her directly. The kind of slip that means nothing by itself until enough of them line up. By the time her showcase weekend was getting close, even I could feel the pattern turning against us. And for the first time since this started, Richard began to look at me like he was adding something up. The thing that finished it wasn't some genius investigation. It was one message at the wrong time, one small detail dropped in the wrong place, and a man finally getting tired of feeling like the only person in the room who didn't know what was going on. The showcase weekend had gone well on the surface. Donors happy, photos clean, Amber glowing through the whole thing like she had built the place herself. Richard was in a better mood than usual because the numbers looked strong and a few of the right people had said the right things in his ear. I should have taken that as my chance to get some distance. Instead, I stayed in the pattern. The morning after the final donor brunch, I was in the office earlier than usual, half dead from too little sleep, sorting follow-up packets and pretending I was focused. Richard was already in. His door was open. I could hear him on a call, clipped and calm. My phone buzzed. I didn't even think. I looked down. Amber left something under the guest room chair. Get it before staff does. I swear my whole body locked up. Not because of the message by itself. Because Richard had copied both of us on an email 10 minutes earlier, and I had forgotten that when a message comes in right after a thread like that, the names sit too close together on the screen. Too visible. Too easy to catch if the wrong person is standing near you. And Richard was standing near me. I hadn't heard him come out of his office. "What did Amber leave?" he asked. His voice wasn't loud. That made it worse. I turned so fast I nearly dropped the phone. I think she means event materials. He held out his hand. For one stupid second I considered refusing. Then I gave him the phone, because refusing would have said more than anything on the screen. He read the message once. No expression. Then again. "When were you in my house?" he asked. I tried to answer too quickly. "For the donor lists and the seating." He looked up, and that was the moment I knew it was over. Not because he had proof of everything. Because his face had changed. Something cold had settled into it, something final. "Don't lie to me," he said. I wish I could say I handled it well. I didn't. I stood there trying to find a version that sounded smaller than the truth. But there wasn't one. Not anymore. Not after the hotel timings, the house visits, the weird overlaps. The staff seeing me where I shouldn't have been. Amber getting sloppy because she thought she was untouchable. Richard handed the phone back like it annoyed him to touch it. "Get your things," he said. "Richard. Now." People in the office heard the tone and stopped pretending not to listen. Nobody looked directly at me, which somehow felt worse. I went to my desk, picked up what I could carry, and knew from the silence around me that word was already moving without anyone saying it out loud. Before I made it to the elevator, his assistant stepped in front of me. "Your access has been shut off." I just nodded. That should have been the end of my part in it. But Amber called while I was in the parking garage, and against all common sense I answered. "What happened?" she asked immediately. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. He knows. There was silence on the line. Real silence for the first time since I'd known her. "How much?" she asked. "Enough." I heard a door close on her side. Then her voice dropped. "Did you say anything?" I stared at the concrete wall in front of my car. That question did something ugly to me. Not "Are you okay?" Not "This is my fault." Just that. "Are you serious?" I said. "Alex." "No, go deal with your husband." She got sharper then. "Don't start acting offended now." And that was Amber. Even at the end, even with the whole thing collapsing, she still sounded like the person in the room who expected things handled for her. I hung up. I found out the rest in scraps because people talk, especially around money. Richard went home early that day. Amber disappeared from anything public after that. No host photos, no donor follow-up dinners, no polished little appearances attached to the firm. Her friend stopped answering me. One of the drivers I knew from event weekends texted me 2 days later with nothing but, "Rough week." That was all I needed to know about how far it had spread. As for me, there was no meeting, no second chance, no graceful exit package wrapped in polite language. Payroll sent the paperwork. My company accounts were dead. My name was off the project files before the week ended. A guy from operations called to ask where one vendor contact sheet was saved. Like I was already some former employee they barely remembered. That was the hardest part to swallow. I'd spent weeks thinking I was getting pulled upward. Better rooms, better conversations, better access, better money maybe coming next if I kept proving myself. Richard had started opening doors, and I was stupid enough to think I could keep walking through them while sneaking around behind him. But I was never entering their world. I was just being used inside it. And once Richard understood what had been happening in his house, in his cars, around his business, I was out of that world faster than I'd entered it.